Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 80 of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. If you are new here, welcome to the show. It's always great to have you. And make sure that you follow us on our various social media platforms. That is on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And of course, most importantly, make sure that you like and subscribe so that you know when a new podcast is loaded. So this can be done on Apple Podcasts, your Spotify, Google, wherever else you listen to your podcast. And as always, to my loyal listeners who are back, thank you so much. Now, let's get into today's episode. My guest today is Dr. Joseph Malinzi from Uganda, but now based in Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. In this episode, he takes us through his journey of his academic career that started in Uganda. He performed well in his high school years and was offered an opportunity to study for a Bachelor of Science degree in education at Makerere University. There, he performed well and was given an opportunity to teach and tutor other students. Joseph admits that there was a point in his life that he had no clear plan of his career. However, after his BSc, he applied for a postgraduate diploma at the African Institute of Mathematical Sciences, AIMS, in Cape Town, South Africa. This was an accelerated program that was completed in 10 months. He then went on to pursue a master's degree at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, still in South Africa, which he finished in 8 months. And he later went on to pursue a PhD at the same institution. Currently, Joseph is a lecturer in mathematics department at Eswatini University. Dr. Joseph's research broadly lies in the field of mathematical disease modeling. He constructs and analyzes mathematical models to describe and solve problems arising in nature. His research interest cuts across the areas of dynamical systems, biomathematics, computational mathematics, and big data. Tune in as we hear about this and so much more. Let's go. Hi, Joseph. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Anne.
It's so lovely to have you here. And I think before we get everything started, it's best for us to get to know a little bit more about you. So briefly, who is Joseph? Where are you currently based? Where are you originally from? And in brief, what are you currently doing?
I was born and raised in Kampala. Kampala is the capital of Uganda. To actually be more specific, I was born and raised in some ghetto-ish place called Nakawa. I am the last born of 6 with 1 sister and 4 brothers.
Tell us a bit about the root of the science. What are some of the influences that got you into where you are right now?
So my mom and my elder siblings used to teach me lots of stuff from home, especially algebra. I went to a village school called Luanda Primary School. And because of my good performance, my parents decided to take me to a city school called Kiswa Primary School.
Just give us an overview of your academic journey, starting from primary and also going into tertiary education.
So fast forward, after grade 7, I went to College Wairaka. It's in Jinja. It's a prominent school. And actually, that's where Chapter Gay, the guy who just won the 5,000 meter run at the recent Olympics. Yes. So he is my OB. He's my OB at that school. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I joined Form 1 in that school only 3 weeks to the end of the term. And this was because my parents were still looking for school fees. Nonetheless, I still managed to perform well throughout. So through Form 1 to Form 4. My favorite subjects were maths, accounts, French, and history, and physics. Points in UACE, so that's Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education. Mm-hmm. And I was selected for a government sponsorship to take up a Bachelor of Science with Education degree, at Makerere University. Makerere University is, I think, the number 1 university in Uganda. Due to my hard work and good grades, while at Makerere, some lecturers would employ me to tutor their students. Now, I must mention that I had no clear plan as to what I wanted or what I was going to do after university. It's strange, but I was just studying. I was going with the flow, do well in class, or make some money, and So after university, I actually remained in hostel, and I kept applying for several scholarships to undertake postgrad studies. Luckily, after some time, probably 6 months or so, I got 2 offers: a Master of Arts in Economics at Makerere University and a postgraduate diploma in mathematical sciences at the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences in Cape Town. I ended up choosing the latter because I wanted to travel. It's an institute. Yeah, it's an institute that follows a rather unique curriculum. That's the curriculum is designed in such a way that it's student-centered, and it's based on solving problems. A few students, about 40 or 50, are selected from different countries, and they go. They go to AIMS, and lecturers are chosen from all over the world. Really top rated lecturers from Oxford, from Cambridge, from Princeton, from wherever, Perimeter Institute. They go to AIMS and teach students in 3 weeks intervals. So courses run in 3 weeks intervals, and then at the end of every 3 weeks, I think students are assessed based on some assignments or tests, and sometimes some exams. And then later on, students then undertake projects in any field of their interest. And these fields include physics, maths, applied maths, engineering, computer science.
At AIMS, how long were you there for?
So the program runs for about 10 months. In the past, we would graduate with a postgraduate diploma, but currently students do graduate with an MSc.
Okay. Oh, so at that time it wasn't a fully fledged MSc degree. So now it's changed in the sense that an MSc, it's either between a year or 2 years, depending on whether it's coursework or if it's research. So I'm assuming at AIMS it was all coursework.
It was coursework and dissertation, but I don't know the powers that be who evaluate what then the qualification it should be. It's been upgraded to masters, although it still runs for 10 months.
So a master's in 10 months.
But I must mention that it's but it's very competent students, or I don't know, very good students that are chosen. And
no, I'm not trying to take away any of that. I'm just really impressed. I wish I was able to get a master's in 10 months. Yeah, well, you did mention that these are top-notch students, top-notch, lecturers. So it's a sort of an accelerated program, if we can put it that way.
It's intense. In my opinion, it's not necessarily about time. It's not about the period that you spend, but I think it's the actual work or the output. So actually, because of what you've said, that duration, when students graduate and they want to do a PhD, certain universities don't admit them directly to do a PhD. They would still have to do some other, master's program before they can actually register for their PhD.
Well, dare I say that, I don't know, maybe because I'm biased and I went through 2 years of an MSc. It's only fair.
Any students out there who think they do qualify and they'll want to go to Ames, they should give it a shot. And
let's just get back on track, like you said. Okay, so now that you went through Ames and you were able to meet these amazing lecturers, you're able to network and you're able to travel, where does this journey now take you? And while you're answering that, how does that time at Ames kind of foster the next steps in your decision of where you're going?
While at Ames, a certain lecturer had visited to, I think, give us a seminar. I'm trying to remember the name of this guy. He was called Kesh Govinda from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. So then he talked about UKZN and how UKZN was interested in recruiting master's students. So he was from the School of Mathematics and Statistics, Mathematics, Statistics and Computer Science. So they needed students. But so if you could just also allow me to mention this, if a student actually wants to take up a master's program, one of the easiest way in any university, the easiest route, in my opinion, is to first of all identify the area in which the student wants to do the master's, and then write to, or maybe browse through the website of staff members or professors or lecturers who are in that field, and then write an email or contact those professors or lecturers and inquire whether they would be interested in taking them up, and maybe like send a CV or something like that. So that's exactly what I did. I wrote to a certain professor called Professor Precious Sibanda. This guy is a fluid mechanist, but he also had interest in biomathematics. So he ended up taking me up as his student. So from Ames, I went to UKZN, where I obtained my MSc. Now, Anne, you were saying that, at Ames, people do their MSc in 10 months. At UKZN, I did my MSc in 8 months.
No ways.
But
how?
because I fulfilled the required the requirements for one to graduate with an MSc.
Wow.
But because, and you see, with this master's, actually, I remember the examiners. I remember being asked if I wanted to upgrade my MSc to a PhD. So what that meant is that I would not graduate with an MSc, but continue working and then get a PhD. But then, I don't know. I refused. I refused the offer because I thought when I went back to, if I would go back to Uganda or any other country, and then they are looking at your papers and you have a postgraduate diploma, and then from the diploma you have a PhD, it wouldn't. Well, in Africa, I guess it's still new for people to finish their honors and then get a PhD. So, anyways, so I had to wait for the minimum time, which is, I don't know whether it's 1.5 years or 2 years, in order for me to graduate. For my master's,
you said you had to wait. So even though you completed, you still had to run down the clock?
Yes. So I completed my master's, but but now then I started working on my PhD.
Okay.
So I registered for my PhD, but I could not graduate. I could not get the degree because there is a stipulated minimum time that one can graduate with an MSc at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and I think in any other universities. So yes, I was waiting, but I had started working on my PhD. Well, the PhD, that one, the time was a bit long because then with PhD, you're left on your own. with minimal advice from your supervisors. But I must mention that I had I think the best supervisors. For my master's, I investigated the interaction dynamics of immune cells and tumor cells in order to explain a phenomenon called cancer dormancy. Now, this is cancer dormancy is a situation where immune cells in the body manage to keep tumor cells dormant for a long time. And so trying to understand this phenomenon could actually perhaps lead to the production of effective anti-cancer drugs, because you want to keep these tumor cells dormant for a long time without them, becoming cancerous. And then for my PhD, I did a little bit of that cancer dormancy thing, and I also investigated the dynamics of chemoviral therapy cancer treatment. So this is a combination treatment that uses chemotherapeutic drugs and oncolytic viruses. Currently, there is a new form of cancer treatment called oncolytic viral therapy, which uses viruses like measles and so on and so forth. So because viruses multiply so fast, and which is the same thing with cancer cells. So the oncolytic viruses are engineered in a way that they would not be harmful to the human body, but in a way that they target these fast multiplying cells, the cancerous cells. And so hopefully in the future, this will be, a definite cure for several cancer types.
Not specific to, let's say, pancreatic or breast cancer. It's for any type of cancer.
So different viruses are engineered for specific cancer types. So you would find that maybe melanoma, you would have to use a different type of oncolytic viruses. Yes, for breast cancer, you would have to use a different type. So it's not for all. It's not, because different cancer types have different characteristics.
That's so fascinating. Where is that research still happening, or? Because I'm assuming now you've moved on to something. We're obviously going to get into it, but has other people picked up this type of research, or,
So I can't brag that I'm the first one to. Obviously, I'm not the first. So there's been thousands of studies, at least experimental-wise, and then clinical studies. Several clinical experiments have been done on oncolytic viruses. But you see, with experiments, they cost billions of dollars to carry out. Whereas with mathematical modeling, which is my main area of research, all you would need is a pen, paper, a good computer to run your simulations. So it would be cheaper to actually answer certain questions like we have done, or like I have done in my previous studies, only using mathematics and computational simulations. So, sorry, Anna, I've forgotten your question. Is this research still ongoing? Yes, I'm actually still doing the same stuff. Currently, we are trying, because you see, chemoviral therapy would mean you are combining chemo, that's the use of drugs, and viruses. But now, currently, I think there is a question of how much of the drugs and how much of the viruses would you give a patient. So in other words, I am together with several other collaborators, trying to look at optimal treatment protocols, where you would say, okay, give the patient this amount of drugs for this time, and then give this amount of viruses for this period of time. Yeah, and then we are also looking at several other combination therapies like chemoimmunotherapy. So that would be the combination of chemotherapy and immunotherapy. Yes.
And this is all also done modeling wise as well.
Myself, I am doing it, modeling wise, using maths and computational simulations. When I was, probably I'll get there, but when I was doing my postdoc, I did a postdoc at UP, or rather we wanted to replicate what data is producing. So, for example, we wanted to team up with guys that carry out experiments and see whether with mathematics we can actually reproduce the same experimental results. It's not an easy thing to do it mathematically. So yeah, we tried, and that work is still ongoing. Although we did actually get some results. So what would happen is that then, instead of these experiments continuing to be carried out, like I said, because they're expensive, then you would use your mathematical modeling. If you can see that it's actually fitting well to the data, then you can use your mathematical modeling to forecast, to make future predictions and say, okay, so if this experiment was to run for the next 100 or 1 year, then this is what you should expect. The virus would have moved like this, and maybe all cancer cells would have been killed, or yeah.
Sure. Okay. So was the decision then, taking this postdoc, in essence, that you wanted to go full track into an academic career?
Oh, yes. And coupled with other, what do you call it? Coupled with a few other factors. But also, yes, I had at that point, I actually made up my mind to stick to academia, because you see, when I was doing my PhD, I was teaching and doing research. Then I got used to this kind of stuff, and somehow I fell in love. And then the reviews I used to get from the students to say, oh, Joseph is a good teacher and stuff like that. So I felt like, perhaps this was my calling. And remember, I did a BSc with education. So that meant, so that meant was that what that meant is that I qualified as a professional teacher.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up, that I do remember you mentioned that you had a background in teaching. So this background in teaching and your love for mathematics, we're going to talk about to currently where you are right now, where you are actually a lecturer, and you've moved again. I think, if I'm just going to take a slight little detour, but I love how your work and your job has just afforded you the opportunity to travel from all of these different places. And now you're currently based in Swaziland. You're a lecturer, and you're also doing some research on the side. So I think now we're going to step away from the academics for a second, but how has that journey been for you, going into these different places? Because these different countries also come with different cultures. So how have you sort of acclimatized to these different countries, or these different cities and these different universities?
Meeting different cultures actually educates you a lot. And for me, I've learned a lot from the different cultures. Luckily for me, the work environment or the study environment hasn't been different, because you see, Eswatini or Swaziland is actually almost located inside South Africa. And so even the language spoken here, the Swazi language, is almost the same as the Zulu language. And their culture here is almost the same as that for the Zulus. All in all, I've acclimatized by simply allowing myself to accept everyone the way they come.
And I think that's the beauty of traveling, that you get to learn all of those special skills. Okay, so can you just tell us what you're currently doing now, apart from the teaching, in terms of your research at your current institution?
When I was doing my postdoc at UP, there are several projects that we had started. But you see, with research, it's not like you finish, you wouldn't know what time. Although you do set targets, I wasn't able to finish most of those projects that we had started at UP. So when I joined UNESWA, that's the University of Eswatini, by the way, currently Swaziland has changed to Eswatini. So I carried on with those projects, with some of those projects, some of which I've just described, describing how oncolytic viruses spread, investigating the effect of a tumor microenvironment. That's the environment. In simple terms, the environment in which a tumor survives, describing the effect that it has on the outcome of tumor spread, on the outcome of oncolytic viral therapy, or on the outcome of treatment. Then I also started supervising certain students, and each student was, working on
different things.
Exactly, different sets of problems. And so this ended up being the research that I've been doing. But mainly it's projects that we're carrying over from UP. Currently, I am also a member of a technical working group. So this team is tasked with doing research that's related to the current, the pandemic that everyone knows that we are currently facing, that's COVID-19. And we report back to the Ministry of Health with our findings, or even with suggestions on how to control the spread of the disease. Now, this team, how it's constituted, it has several representatives from WHO, from UN, from the Ministry of Health, from different organizations, from different NGOs, and then from the university here. Because, of course, the university is assumed to be the epitome of quality research. So the university was engaged, and we formed 4 groups. There is the mathematical modeling group. There is the statistical modeling group. There is the spatiotemporal or mapping. These are guys in geography and some applied statistics. And then each group has a leader. I am the leader of the mathematical modeling group. And each leader reports to the technical working group in the country. So we are about 4 individuals from the university who firstly report to our findings to the whole group. We share our findings as with the whole 4 groups, and then the 4 of us again report to the technical working group. So that's some of the stuff that I am currently doing.
Oh, fantastic. I like how, even though you have your focus research, how your expertise are able to translate to what's current and what's on the ground, and with the COVID stuff. So yeah, that's super interesting. So Joseph, before we wrap up, we've had such a great discussion. I didn't get to ask you this in the very beginning, and I always think this is very important because we dived straight into your very wonderful academic journey. But you mentioned in the beginning that you were born in Uganda and you had siblings who taught you algebra and everything, but we didn't quite really get to understand the root of your science specifically. So I always want to know When you think back now and you reflect, given everything that you've achieved in all of these many experiences, what were some of the influences that got the young Joseph to be like, this is something that I might want to do one day? Do you think you kind of knew, or it just kind of happened that you are here right now?
Interestingly, like I mentioned before, I mean, even when I was doing my undergrad, I didn't know where I was going to end up or what I really wanted to do. So actually, apart from mathematics and physics being some of my favorite subjects, I was actually also good at subjects. And I remember one of my teachers in O-level once telling me that I could make a good lawyer. So anyways, back to the question. I can only remember a few episodes that I think got me interested in STEM, but I simply suppose that it just happened gradually, also coupled with the hype back at home, the hype for people to do, for students to pursue science subjects, the hype by the government for students to do science subjects. So yeah,
of course.
One other episode that I recall is that when a teacher at my A-level returned our test scripts, mathematics test scripts. And I don't remember what I had scored, but it must have been really a low mark. And then the teacher said the best scored 100% and the worst student scored 0%. So I actually remember crying because I had a low mark, and here was another dude who had 100%. So I vividly remember that day that I promised myself never to perform poorly. So then that resolution helped me to, first of all, fall in love with the subject in a way and practice more, and also gain favor from my teachers, because then they started liking me because of my improved and good performance. Another thing that I can possibly remember is that while at Makerere University, we offered a course called biomathematics. It was taught by an amazing professor. And I was fascinated by the way you can use mathematics to solve problems arising in nature. I mean, for example, we can use certain mathematics tools to sort of try and suggest measures to the control of COVID-19. So for me, that was really fascinating. Yeah. So I didn't know that science is what I wanted. It was just a combination of several factors for me to end up in science. And these included the influence from my siblings. This is important because what you see your siblings or your parents doing, possibly that influences you. The hype from government and maybe as well the bursaries that I got channeled me then to do something that has sponsorship.
I fully relate to your answer that sometimes these things kind of just happen. You don't quite know that you want to be here. And, by the grace of God, you end up with the opportunities and all of the things that happen to get you here. So I really love that you didn't, even though you didn't give us that made up story, if it had to be like, I always knew, sometimes you just don't. And that happens, and that's okay too. So for somebody who's listening, and we've heard your pretty amazing journey, I just wanted to know, what words of wisdom would you like to impart on us as we wrap up our chat with you today?
Yeah, well, firstly, I would appeal to parents to guide their children in making career choices. That's very important, in my opinion. I personally, just went to school. I kept on doing well, and I only started thinking about career possibly after my undergraduate studies. So I think it's best for one to study with some set of goals or some sense of target that is career oriented. More still, I think that one needs to know or discover their passion. Okay. Even while at a tender age, maybe in primary, but want to discover their talents or their passion. It's possible either you as a parent to identify your child's talents, or even the child, the person themselves to discover their passion and not just do things. Okay. I would appeal to students out there to apply for funding. Apparently, there is lots of funding that actually goes unawarded sometimes. It's also important to look at the world as a global village, not to just settle in one's home country, even when, say, you are perhaps doing nothing or jobless. So rather, it would be nice maybe to get out of your comfort zone and be ready to study or work in a different environment or in a different country, for that matter. Networking is important because that's how you get to know about opportunities. So it's important to network. I mean, if you have visitors, if you've gone for a conference, it's important to approach these professors, approach these people, and talk about your work, exchange emails and stuff like that. In general, do good, be patient, take responsibility, ensure quality stuff in whatever you do, ensure that the stuff that you do is actually quality and top-notch stuff. Yeah. That would be my advice.
Well, thank you. That was some very well-rounded advice from you, and I appreciate you telling us about that, and also just letting us know about your academic journey, and also teaching us some things, especially with what you've been studying, and inspiring us about how you completed your master's so quickly. So thank you so much, Joseph. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much, Anne, for hosting me. I'm really excited. I'm grateful. I'm really glad that you've considered me for your platform, and hopefully someone out there could perhaps pick up a few things from what I have said. Yeah.
So thank you once again, and it's a great pleasure. To everybody else who's tuned in, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl Anne with an E. Until next time, goodbye.